Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
And from then on,
From then on, it
First
will
Monday.
be the first Monday, the
long as I don't have
regular
court,
meeting
I'll be good.
moving forward.
okay, get you a little trolley.
I mean, at this point.
Okay, thank you.
I am so
Are we
sorry.
adjourned?
Okay, this is
Yeah.
all signed.
Regular, regular meeting, 9 o'clock workshop moving forward.
Has she left?
I thought she was coming tonight.
The
thought she
18th, but it'll be on the
left.
extraordinary because
Oh, I don't know.
If she's not
and
here,
then,
all the people that
vote
applied get
for
to,
the pool will be on the
like, put
24th.
it off till next month to get a full panel of all. If, at their
Are me and
option,
you straight on that?
if they don't want
Okay, good.
the approval to hinge on four. Well, anyone who's on the agenda trying to get a zoning, they get to, because all five of
You're
them are
not
here.
straight with us, are you?
At their request, they can continue.
Catch them all you
I
can.
don't know why they would, but thank you.
I'll take that as a yes.
Okay.
There we go.
I had auto pen before, so, are we having anybody here this morning? Yeah, we'd like to see. Is this the one that's a short here?
Oh, you really?
Yeah.
You gonna be on Channel
So you-
2?
What you gonna be on channel 2 for?
No, he making a commercial.
I'm doing a firm commercial. Your last commercial on your firm was Dynamo. That was great. I've used it lots to people who say, I need something, here's a, I send them the thing and they all come back and say, wow.
Let me, if somebody needs to use that film company, those guys are super great.
Who is it?
Matt Reese is his name, he used to work with like,
REESE?
but they're, yeah, he used to work with like the big,
He's here in locally or
no, he's,
Fayetteville? Okay.
he worked with
I was left-handed.
65
My wife's left-handed.
for a small firm, they come around, like,
There's another lady that was here with him last time.
Oh, that's good.
it's
And
the
then-
I
exact
don't remember
same.
her name, but I can probably
You
find
can
it.
call and go, hey, I need
I
a
tell everybody, I want
a
everybody
recut
to meet
for
me
a
first,
Facebook
because
ad
once
for
they've met
15
her,
seconds.
they all go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Miss Queen.
Fantastic.
Oh,
And
wow.
last time, we filmed all day long on Friday, and he was like, I still want a couple more shots. You know,
Everything about you, man.
and filmed all day Saturday. And like,
Wow.
they cost him, yeah, fantastic.
Well, you know, when you know what you're doing, you can do it.
I did a lot of stuff where people walk up.
Who's the young lady that,
Reception lines. And
I'm so sorry, who's the young lady that works with Bob Dole?
Kimberly Walker, Kim Walker.
Kim Walker. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just
We got testimonials.
That would be
Really?
most awesome.
Dutton and Dutton.
Yeah, it's Dutton Law GA. We're doing, I had a guy lined up to come tomorrow who inadvertently helped the armed robbery. His
Are we supposed to give those out? At May one?
Monday,
Oh,
or Tuesday, rather, Tuesday.
They wanted to pass them out, okay. And he was like, all right, let's go. And he was like, I think he just like shoplifted or whatever. And like the next day it's on Facebook, someone robbed it. He's and the third friend that was a part of it, before they could find him and he could tell everybody, the other guy who actually shot his back head, who was inside.
Really, really good. I go back to school on.
oh my
My
God.
guy spent 15 minutes in Lamar. As soon as he heard about it, he was like,
And all of a sudden,
Well, yeah, but I mean, you're.
We got 2 minutes.
I'm not even really understanding.
Which one?
Oh, it's a 30 seconds? Somebody better, might ask all those people.
Yeah, I mean, that has drastically changed.
You see how many people are?
Is this the one with the cemetery?
We are recording and we are live.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, where's that cemetery?
How you doing, sir?
It's 93 acres total.
They found 2 of the 3.
Steve,
Still one.
Ma'am?
is Rita gone?
She told me Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
Now, that does not mean she wasn't packing and all that stuff.
Right, but
I'm usually gone the day before my vacation too.
what day is this? Thursday?
It takes me a
This
few
is
days to
Thursday.
come back too.
Oh, yeah, I think she's in Atlanta, because I think their flight is tonight at like 12. You know, it leaves at 12, 6 to 8 hours to get there.
German?
So 6 o'clock in the morning, it'll be about midday there. Okay, ready.
Good evening and welcome to Spalding County Board of Commissioners zoning public hearing. It is Thursday, July 27th at 6 p.m. I would request that everybody please silence your cell phones and all other electronic devices. At this time, I'd like to ask Commissioner James Dutton of District 2 to lead us in the invocation, and Commissioner Ryan Bolden to lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Please join me in the invocation. Our most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we're so grateful that we're able to gather together tonight. Father, we just thank you and honor you for every day that we get to spend here in this wonderful planet, in this wonderful country, this awesome state, this amazing community. Father, please help us tonight to have thy Spirit with us, that we can know the will of thy Son Jesus in our lives, that we can act in accordance with that Spirit, that we can do what's best for the citizens of Spalding County now and in the future. Father, we ask these blessings in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
If you would, please join me in the pledge of our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. For those of you that this may be your first time in here to watch us work through the issues facing the county, 2 things. One, on my left, your right, are the 4 commissioners that are here tonight. On my left is the county manager, the county clerk, and the citizen engagement specialist. Over on the far side is the director of community development and our attorney. What you see on the big screen is exactly what we see, so there's no differences between, oh, they're seeing something. No, what you see is what we see here for total transparency. All right, item number D, public hearings. Persons desiring to speak must sign in for their appropriate application. When called, speakers must state their names and addresses and direct all comments to the board only. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes to speak on their chosen topics as they relate to matters being considered by the Board of Commissioners on this agenda. No questions will be asked by any of the commissioners during citizen comments. Outbursts from the audience will not be tolerated. Common courtesy and civility are expected at all times during the meeting. Item number 1, application 2317S. Robert W. Barden, owner, 1400 Birdie Road, approximately 18.88 acres, located in land lot 41 of the 3rd District land. The applicant is requesting a special exception to operate a gunsmithing business. This property is currently zoned at AR1, agriculture and residential. Mr. Reese and Councilor.
Yes, the applicant is, again, it's Robert W. Bodrin. Address is 1400 Birdie Road. The request is for a special exception for gunsmithing home occupation. If you may note, the Board of Appeals heard this case back on July 13th, and they had voted to approve the variance or the exception. The current zoning is AR1, agricultural and residential. You'll find that north of the property is AR1, east, south, and west boundary of the property is AR1. If I could read the staff analysis as follows. Would granting a special exception be detrimental to the use of development or adjacent property or the general neighborhood? The answer with that would be no. Granting the special exception would not be detrimental to the adjacent property or the neighborhood. Staff does not foresee any adverse effects on the health or safety of the residents. Additionally, Mr. Bodrin will also be required to meet ATF requirements. Staff does not see the proposed use causing any depreciation or damages to the adjacent properties. Granting the special exception should not have any effects on the existing use of the property or adjacent properties. And the fifth criteria is the subject property sufficient in size to satisfy the space requirements for the proposed use? The answer to that would be yes. Additionally, Mr. Bodrin's workshop will be in an existing accessory structure, and no business will be conducted from the main residence. Criteria 6, will granting the special exception meet the requirements of the Spalding County ordinance? Granting the special exception will bring the use as proposed into compliance with Spalding County zoning ordinance as well with ATF requirements. Final staff recommendation is for a conditional approval with the following conditions. No exterior signage. Fire marshal inspections will be of the premise. Number 3, any felony conviction must be reported within 10 business days. And just to note, on July 13, 2023, again, the Board of Zoning Appeals recommended approval for this application reference as 23-17S with those staff recommendations that I just gave you.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here?
Yes, sir. Mr. Boudron is here, and we do have one person who has signed up for the case, Mr. Greg Reed. Would you like for the applicant to step forward?
Well, if somebody wants to,
If Mr. Reed is here, please step forward and give us your name and address.
Yes, my name is Greg Reed. I live at 1413 Birdie Road, and 4 members of my family live directly adjacent to me, and we are directly across from Mr. Bowden. I would encourage you to speak in favor of this. They are an asset to our community, and he and I have talked in length about this, and I see no issue whatsoever with this. I encourage you to vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Anybody else?
you want to talk to
No,
the
sir, no one else has signed up.
All right, let's make sure that we understand about shooting.
Yes, this is not for a use of a shooting range whatsoever.
There will not be any shooting.
This is just uppers to lowers, right? Like this isn't, like that's like the ATF's definition of gunsmithing, right?
I want to make sure that we're talking, we've had an issue years ago. This is,
I'm
There will
having
be
deja
no
vu.
commercial use.
We
for
need your
shooting
name
at
and
all.
address.
Yeah,
Would
name-
you please
we-
state your name and your address, please, for the record?
Robert Bodron, 1400 Birdie Road. And I currently have a firearms license, and I want to move the location down to my current property. I shoot on the property as a person, but there's no extra shooting involved in the business at all. The business is mostly transferring and repairs, and I will actually probably not shoot hardly anything due to the business on the property. But I do shoot my personal guns there as
let's make sure the word is no commercial shooting.
right.
Okay, I want to make sure we're all square on that. Now, personal shooting within the law that allowed, that's a different issue. Okay.
Have you got everything else squared away with the ATF? Sorry.
Oh, I wanted to get the zoning approved to put in the application
Okay.
for a different license at this location or move the old license down here, whichever one is going to be easier. But I wanted to make sure and get the zoning approved first before I do that application. But it shouldn't be a problem. I've had an FFL for about 30 years now.
So what kind of license is this you're talking about moving?
Oh, a federal firearms license that allows transfers of firearms under the legal processes that the FAA approved.
So if I buy a gun online, they can't ship it to me. They have to ship it to somebody like him, and I have to go pick it up from him. If I buy half of a rifle and then another half of a rifle, they have to ship it to them, and then he, with the proper ATF license, can manufacture that rifle by putting those two things together. I mean, it's literally click, like that's it. And he manufactured the rifle, and then I go and pay him for manufacturing that rifle.
Yeah, if I remember this story, we had a whole bunch of folks who were out of tolerance with us, and we're moving everybody into tolerance with the law to be able to do this.
Yeah.
That's why we're seeing everybody come, right?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the ATF randomly changes the rules just when they roll out a federal. So.
Yeah, we understand. Okay.
So can't you have a privately owned business in your home, occupational, by right?
No.
You have to have a special exception to have a
Correct.
home occupation?
Yeah, I mean,
We
there's
do
been,
make a distinction between minor and major,
yeah.
but this qualifies for special exception approval. And this is the way all the others last year were treated.
Okay,
There was a
so,
girl who came here that was like selling leather bracelets or something online and like needed to like
to have a
get a
special,
special exception because her business was like, there's no storefront, there's no, you know what I'm saying? But like,
A minor home occupation is just in office,
yeah.
just in office,
and a major is,
anything above an office.
so I guess my concern with this, the first gentleman that got up and spoke said that he lived right across, or his family all lived adjacent to that property. And I mean, there's still multiple properties surrounding that. And I'm having like deja vu because we got burned. We got burned for somebody who wanted to operate a gunsmithing business, and it took us 7 years to get them to stop. I don't know anything about you, sir, and I'm not trying to be ugly, but I'm always concerned, because how can you put a gun together or repair a gun if you don't shoot it?
Like literally, it's the equivalent of putting this pin together. Like it is this entire piece, and you go click, and you put a pin in it. And
But how do you know if it works?
because the pieces work. Like now, like I don't have to test this pin. I know this pin works. Like it's literally like he's not like banging with hammers and blowtorches. It's literally like put these two pieces that are made together. The ATF just calls that manufacturing, and so he's got to jump through, reams of paper worth of stuff. This is just one of those steps. I promise the ATF's going to hold him to a higher standard than we ever could. They're going to knock
We
on his
got
door.
no help from the ATF the last time. I'm just being very real.
Well, we're talking about the FFL. I'm not talking about the mistakes of allowing a gun range.
We
to
have
go in.
no provision, excuse me, that prevents someone who has a gun,
From
a
shooting.
personal gun, from going outside to shoot it, subject to constraints of nuisance and personal safety. We have consistently allowed people to do gunsmithing as a home occupation without having a shooting range. And the shooting range component is what got us into trouble on Rover Road.
Right. It wasn't the FFL, the home occupation. It was the shooting range portion.
It started off as one thing and transitioned into something totally different with what we got into before. But there will be no shooting. We all agree, no shooting allowed.
No, he cannot have a shooting range. In fact, I believe we have a special provision in the home occupation section that says you cannot have a home occupation, special exception home occupation, as a shooting range or for a shooting range.
All right, Attorney, we believe that this is, we will not have what happened to us before.
This is not going to be full-blown firearms now.
Yes, that's what, yes.
And he is, and if it's approved, Mr. Bodran's being treated exactly as the others who have come up before you for
Yes.
purposes of a gunsmithing repair business.
Did anyone come he went to the Board of Appeals? Was it that who he went to first? Were there any people to speak for or against it at those meetings?
I don't read.
There was some-
Yes, there were some, but we spent a great deal that night of explaining between us and the applicant what exactly he was doing, what requesting to do on his property.
And what was the sentiment? I didn't read the minutes from that
Well,
meeting.
the Board of Appeals recommended approval, and the people who were there, I'm assuming Dr. Ledbetter's called out the last name on this list to speak. The people who were there asking whether this was gonna be a shooting range are not here tonight.
Okay.
Correct.
So we believe that we took care of all the issues during the, okay.
The questioning.
All right, do I have a motion to
Motion to
approve?
approve.
Do I have a
Second.
second? I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 4-0, motion carries. Thank you, sir. Sorry this took so long to get through. We just didn't, our history is not real good. We appreciate it. Item number 2, conduct a public hearing on the abandoned cemetery located on parcel 257-01007, Moore Road, Hardy Lane, pursuant to OCGA 36727. Call for a motion to go into,
Motion to open a public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
all right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 4-0, we're in public hearing now.
Mr. Chairman, we have two people who have signed up to speak, one for and one against. Ms. Betty Elder is the first who has signed up this evening for this particular case. Ms. Elder, would you please step forward? And if you would, please state your name and your address for the record.
My name is Betty Elder. I live at 209 Bicycle Road, Griffin 30223. And I've always lived in the proximity of this cemetery. As a child, I knew about the cemetery. So I spoke at the September meeting expressing my concern for the cemetery, that it be preserved and protected with access for visitors, and its true boundaries be determined by an archaeological survey. Addressing part of my concern, it is my understanding that the cemetery will be surrounded by a 4-foot fence and a 20-foot gravelled pathway with an easement provided for visitors coming in from Hardy Lane. It was determined in the September meeting that a survey must be performed. However, my request for an archaeological survey did not occur. I offered a list of companies skilled in this field, but my list was not considered. The current second owner submitted the very same survey for this meeting as the first owner. A registered professional archaeologist determined that the survey does not meet the minimum standards and guidelines for all archaeological investigations conducted in Georgia. And some of the reasons are the following. The principal investigator is not a registered professional archaeologist. A literature review and record search should occur prior to field work. There appears to be no mention of searching online records for historic maps and aerial photos, which is apparently common in cemetery work. There is no mention of trying to determine the identity of the deceased by interviewing possible descendants. Although there are no names on the graves, I provided the commissioners with a list of the names of the members who attended the church that existed between 1827 and 1854 in proximity to this cemetery, which is certainly a source, and myself as well. There is no site map showing precise GPS coordinates. There is no site map or sketch map showing where the graves are located in relationship to each other and the landscape. There is no map showing where the ground was probed for graves and where it wasn't. There is no map showing the graves in relationship to the flagged boundary. An archaeological site form was not submitted to the Georgia Archaeological Site file. This means future researchers will not have easy access to this report or any information that the cemetery has been examined. In closing, I ask you to require another survey, one that will meet the Georgia standards and guidelines for archaeological investigations. Otherwise, we are faced with the knowledge that unmarked graves probably exist beyond those that are marked, especially considering that this cemetery is at least nearly 200 years old. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Elder. All right, so everybody knows, we're gonna do both sides, and then we'll let the staff talk to us about where we are with it, all right?
Mr. Morozak?
Thank you. My name is John Morosek. I'm an attorney and I represent Mitchell and Robert Ponder. They live at 282 Moore Road, which is directly across from this development. My clients have no contention or disagreement with a property owner's right to profit. We just think that this is being rushed. And what we're going to ask you to do is to reset this hearing, give us an opportunity to meet with the developer. I've been communicating with you since last October. Some of these people have been communicating with you since July. The first plan was frankly atrocious. 30 driveways coming out onto Moore Road pointed at my client's property. You can't do that. This development it will require a number of construction approvals, and we understand that, but for the purposes of the cemetery, it would be unlawful to approve the petition tonight. The main reason, there's two reasons. The first is, as Ms. Elder mentioned, the archaeology report. Now note that there's some contention that there may be Native Americans and former slaves buried there as well. So it may be older than 200 years old. And the technology used by their expert was frankly insufficient. He didn't record it with the University of Georgia in Athens. And the solution's pretty simple. This is not a complicated thing. It's to properly delineate where the cemetery is. Put a fence around it. The developer is required to do some kind of plan to ensure that the cemetery doesn't get disturbed. And the easiest thing is to put up a fence around the clear boundaries and then put in a walkway. Because of the history of this property and the Hardy family, the public has been granted access to the property. The developer was, I suppose, a little offended that someone went out onto the property with cadaver dogs. Well, won't say who, but a member of Spalding County will go to jail with them. They've had access to this property. The main problem we have with this, and I don't, you know, the first time I've been able to get in touch with the developer was yesterday. We had a good conversation. This is something that can be worked out, that should be worked out, but I don't think he realizes Georgia Code Section 36-72-5 requires a written plan by a registered genealogist. We won't speak for the church, but the descendants who live in Griffin, who have ancestors buried there, are entitled to notice other than once a week in the Griffin Daily News. There has to be a written plan by a genealogist. The developer's plan, let me just say this, I've told my clients, a lot better than the first one, a lot better. But it's gonna require some modifications. The developer indicated he may change it to put in a flag lot for the cemetery. But you have those records. Ms. Elder gave you those records. So you have records of who was in the church in 1837 to 1854, and it's been in business sporadically. When they didn't have a pastor, they didn't have a church. We know that. But as far as the miscommunication between the parties and the church, I'll leave that to them. But you got to have a genealogy report. And if no one cares, no one cares. But if you have a problem with the genealogy report requirement by a certified genealogist, take it up with the Georgia General Assembly. They require it. So we would ask that you reset this cemetery hearing, and maybe if you'll loan your commission meeting room or another meeting room, we can meet with the developer. was in my truck for an hour and a half speaking with him yesterday, and I appreciate his perspective. I do think he's, a lot better prepared than the previous developer was. But we would ask that you reset this so that we have the opportunity to meet and discuss this again. And finally, I'd like to give you, and I'll give it to your city manager, this is a copy of the letter that I sent yesterday. It's a modification to what I sent earlier. And finally, there were a number of other issues, but this is going to be a good development. It's better than the first one. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sir? All right, anybody else?
No one else has signed up, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Director?
Yes, the applicant is TNT Dynamos LLC. The request, the overview of request, the applicant is seeking approval to develop land on which an abandoned cemetery is located. The property consists of approximately 97.56 acres. This would be developed as a minor subdivision consisting of 8 lots in accordance to the AR1 zoning. The minor subdivision under the name of Hardy Moore Farms is currently pending approval or denial from the Board of Commissioners. We do have here also in our report, before I defer to our zoning attorney, Georgia Code provides the following. No known cemetery, burial ground, human remains, or burial object shall be knowingly disturbed by the owner or occupier of the land on which this cemetery or burial ground is located for the purposes of developing or changing the use of any part of such land unless a permit is first obtained from the governing authority of the municipal corporation or county wherein the cemetery or burial ground is located, which shall have authority to permit such activity except as provided in Code Section 36-72-14. And if I may read, if whether or not the applicant is in compliance with this Georgia Code section, the applicant has complied with this requirement. An archaeologist's report on the cemetery located at the Moore Road tract cemetery boundary delineation by R.S. Webb and Associates. Figure 1 of the report delineates the cemetery on the subject property. The report identified at least 51 graves. The applicant has completed this requirement. A survey of the subject property with the cemetery delineated is included in the archaeological report. The report states that no inscribed markers were observed, therefore specific family associations could not be confirmed. No known Native American graves were identified. The applicant will leave the cemetery undisturbed with no future plans for disinterment. Final staff recommendation was for conditional approval with the following conditions. Hardy Lane would be the access road to the cemetery. The applicant is willing to build an access road if the Board of Commissioners require. Cemetery shall be left undisturbed.
I don't have anything to add to Mr. Reese's report.
Okay.
It tracks the statute governing abandoned cemeteries.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the developer is here if the board would care to hear from the developer.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
You'll please step forward, state your name and your address for the record, please.
Joshua Hale, 564 Mulberry Street, Macon, Georgia, 31201.
Thank you, Mr. Hale.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Board Commissioners. I won't take much of your time. Pretty much everything I have to say was just stated. I do want to take a moment, just say we're grateful to be in Spalding County. We're thankful to have the opportunity to purchase this land, and I think one thing that we all have in common is we're thankful there's not 34 lots with houses going on them on Hardy Lane and Moore Road. There's one thing I want to point out, and then I want to address a couple points that have been made, is this whole petition, my position, and I stated this in my filing, my position was we did not need to file this petition. We were not subject to the requirements of the code because we don't intend to disturb the burial ground. I've been called a developer several times, and we really don't develop anything. We buy land, we survey imaginary lines on it, and then we sell the land. We don't build houses, we don't build curb and gutter roads, we don't do what I call the development of land. We just buy and sell land. And my hope is that whoever we sell to will be able to have good neighbors with a lot of these folks here tonight. And my hope is that everyone can walk away from here pleased. There was an allegation that our archaeologist was not qualified, and so he sent me the MPS Professional Standards for Archaeologists, which require a graduate degree in archaeology, anthropology, or a closely related field. He has a master's degree in physical anthropology, which is a graduate degree. His focus was in human osteology, mostly from pre-contact historic contexts. And I didn't know what that meant, but what it means is he studies bodies in the ground. That is what he does. They're required to have at least 1 year of full-time professional experience training in archaeological research. His work began in 1973, finding, defining, and excavating pre-contact and historic human burials in archaeological contexts. Beginning in 1990, he began conducting regular historic cemetery research, delineation, and/or relocation, and has located between 500 and 1,000 graves that have successfully been defined. And last, but not least, he has supervised experience through Shorter College and the University of Georgia, and on the Tellico Reservoir project in Tennessee, which was done in 1980. And so just wanted to take a moment to let you know that our expert report was in fact a qualified expert report. And as was mentioned, I don't want to repeat everything, but we did have a survey of the land and of the actual delineated. It was claimed that it was not delineated, but the burial ground is delineated on the survey, has been surveyed. And again, as has been mentioned several times, we will not disturb that ground, do not want to disturb the ground, would not disturb the ground even if it was okay to do so. And the pastor of New Salem Baptist Church is here. I think that he may have signed our survey petition to speak. If the board would like to hear from him, he is here and is glad to speak on his opinion on what we intend to do. And we're glad to cooperate with him or any of the other owners to give access and make this burial ground look as respectful and decent as we can. Glad to fence it in, glad to build a road. I'm glad to put a buffer around it. And I told Mr. Mrosek this yesterday, we're glad to put restrictive covenants on that thing in addition to the regulations you already have so that nobody can even drive a lawnmower over it. It's in the middle of the woods. There's not even grass growing in that area. I don't think they would ever need to, but we're glad to put some extra covenants on the face of the deed. I would just like to do my best to appease everybody here and us to get on with our business. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anything from director or from the attorney?
No further comments.
I do have a minor comment. I think Georgia law is such that if you're gonna do development on a lot of whatever kind that does have the cemetery, you'd have to comply with OCGA, OCGA 3672-4 and get a permit pursuant to the hearing process from the county. And if I were the developer and I had a piece of property with a cemetery, I would make certain that I had done that before I started work.
Okay. All right, staff, commissioners?
I hear, and I'm reading the report now, the archaeology report, but I'm not hearing what I think. I mean, when we got ready to do the anything that we were gonna do at the quarry, we had to have an archaeological study that took us a long time to do.
Same thing with the airport.
Right, so, sticking a stick in the ground to look for graves, I'm just not comfortable with that. I read here that it says that ground penetrating radar may not work, but, I mean, clearly people use ground penetrating radar to find stuff all the time. So, I guess my question to you guys are, do we meet the Georgia requirement for someone doing an archaeological survey or study? I mean, I know we have an archaeology report, well, in here, but, yeah, I have some questions about that. I mean, I think it's very important because of the fact that we have evidence that it's been there for that long. That doesn't mean that just because we can't see the indentions in the ground. I'm just not comfortable with.
Well, based on the Georgia code, staff, after consulting with our zoning attorney and just the initial research and gathering of information, we believe that it meets the requirements for abandoning this cemetery, for them to be able to have this minor subdivision according to the AR1 standards.
Okay. All right. Ryan, anything? Okay, James?
So, we heard from an attorney tonight, two attorneys tonight, against it, or, I don't know what the second guy's, I don't know if he's got a JD, but, it was brought up this genealogical report that had to be done. Has that been done? Have you guys looked into that at all?
Yes.
That
That's
is
the one,
done.
that's been done, that was done at your request when it became clear back when Doug Adams owned this property, that a cemetery was there. And that, by definition, in my view, like I just said, James, that means you do an archaeological study when you're going to develop on that tract. It doesn't mean that you've got to go in and disturb the graves. It says you're developing on that land.
So we heard tonight from, I'm going to use the word developer, not developer, that, what did he say? I want everyone to be happy, both sides of this. I think that we're very close to that. I don't know if we are, because there's a bunch of people here who, are giving us some kind of looks. So I don't know because, well, I say that, I don't know if we are, because one of the objections was, well, wait a minute, we gotta do a genealogical survey. Okay, and you guys say it's done. So maybe there's just some asymmetric information that needs to.
Genealogy is different from archaeology.
Right, and I'm using the word genealogy.
And if you'll look at Mr. Reese's report, which set out the requirements of 3672.5, it requires, excuse me, a genealogist report if those buried or believed to be buried are of Aboriginal or American Indian descent. And it tells the genealogist what to do if that's believed to be the case. All right, according to the report from R.S. Webb, there's no way to know, and they say no Native American graves were identified. Isn't that correct, Charles?
Yes.
So they can, there could be a dispute over whether or not something further needed to be done, but there would have to be some evidence could be established that there would be Native American graves identified in order to kick in that requirement, as I'm reading the statute.
But how would you know that it was Native American as opposed to regular American or African
You
American?
won't.
Regular American.
You won't.
I mean, the other one. So yeah,
You won't.
I don't see that they did enough.
I think our choices tonight are between approving it and tabling it. And I think that's what we're being asked to do, is for folks to be able to have another conversation and make sure that everybody's on the same page. And the person who's coming to say, hey, please approve it, actually said, hey, we'd love to make sure that everybody's happy. I think we're gonna get there. Like, to me, that means, you know, hey, we need to come back next month and approve it then, after talking.
If you.
That's up to him.
I want to make 2 points on that. You need, if you decide to table it, you need to give them specific direction as to what you expect to see in terms of findings to supplement the report we already have. The other thing I would point out is that tabling the cemetery hearing does not prevent you from approving the minor subdivision plat. It will prevent them from getting permits to develop on that subdivision. But it will not prevent you from approving the plat.
But does the plat break down the lots? Or
Yes.
Does the plat, yes?
Yes, it's in your packet.
Can we bring up what the proposed plat is? And where, and that's gonna have where the,
Or if you want to hold it till you hear about the subdivision, you could do that. But again, he's not gonna be able to get a permit to develop on that lot, the lots that have the cemetery on it, until this issue's resolved.
So this is my concern. You have a cemetery that could be 150 and 250 years old. Okay, there was no black cemeteries then. If you were a slave, you got buried where your folks was. So I think it's important for us to respect that and to really find out if there's somebody there. I'm just not happy with, it is unlikely. Because when we have to do these archaeological studies, we have to know for sure before we do any development. And I'm not sure how that happens. I don't know if they, you know,
Right.
find DNA or blah, 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 however it does. But I'm just simply saying it is worth it to me with the history that is surrounding that cemetery, that we are absolutely sure.
Then we
Of
need to
who's
give-
buried there.
We need to give direction to the
Can we put a
archaeologists
condition
and
on it
genealogists.
that one lot, because this is almost in the middle of an 18-acre lot, that we put that condition on that one lot not being able to be developed or permits pulled on that one lot until,
My opinion would be that that lot, Commissioner, would not be able to get a permit for
Okay,
any
just that
development
one-
until
the
this
one
is
lot.
resolved. If you approve the plat, then the other lots can proceed. But this one, but the one on which the cemetery is located, if y'all aren't happy with the cemetery report, then they don't get, in my opinion, permits to develop on that lot.
Is there any time sensitivity to this? I mean, are we up against some kind of a federal mandate for time or something that we have an ordinance on time?
that's a great question.
No. No, there are requirements procedurally, Mr. Chairman, for how you conduct your hearing and notice to conduct the hearing and so forth. There's not a specified deadline or time in the statutes governing this.
Other comments or questions?
I'd like for Pastor Mike to step up. I'd like to ask him a few questions. If you, do you mind, Pastor?
Sir, would you state your name and your address for the record, please?
Mike Barnes, 551 Lakeside Drive, Williamson, Georgia, 30292.
Thank you.
So we keep talking about a original location of a church there. Have we decided exactly where that location was, or, I mean, how close to this area it is?
As best I could tell, when I went out on it several years ago and did a little bit of research, in our transition from burning down and relocating, we had gone out and researched with the help of some folks that are here that could tell us some history. And from what I saw, now, I'm not an expert, I saw what could be remnants of the actual cornerstones stacked up of the building itself, as well as remnants of grave markers, but, I mean, it's over 200 years old. There's no way to know exactly.
I know that several people have been working on this pretty hot and heavy, including Mr. Scott, Dennis Scott. And this has been an ongoing thing for over a year now, and we haven't got any further than where we are now. So, I mean, a lot of people are doing a lot of research, pulling from the old registries, and we're still at a standstill. The only thing that we would be able to do would dig them up and take some kind of DNA sample, which that's probably way far gone for that, to be able to determine what descent, if they were Indians or slaves or the church-going people at that time.
Yes, sir, I have, that's above my pay grade. I have no idea. All I know is, every life's important, so every grave ought to be honored.
Is that right?
I would ask, just from the personal and the church's standpoint, that we make whatever efforts we need to have confidence, that the graveyard itself, the outline of it is marked. I have no way of knowing which expert's the best or, but once we have it marked, that I'm satisfied on the church's behalf with the gentleman that had stated he would put up the fence, he would give access. We've offered to put up a historic marker, a plaque, telling the history of the property itself. Where it comes to building houses, I got nothing to say on that.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else got anything?
All right, what's your,
So this hearing is just for us to talk about the abandoned cemetery.
That's correct.
The action later will be to
correct.
Correct.
It's
Yeah,
already abandoned, so what
The
would
the action later is for a minor plat for subdivision 23-01, and that will be later in the new business.
So,
Sorry, it's not 2301, it's a little bit farther down.
all right, so this was just,
This is just public hearing.
just to hear all the comments that we've got.
Correct.
And we've done that, right? We feel, everybody feels okay? All right, thank you, Ms. Barnes, appreciate it.
Motion.
Come out of.
All right, do I have a motion to close the public hearing? I'm sorry. Do I have a second? All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 4-0, we're out of public hearing. Item E, consent agenda. I will read the 3 items under consideration for the consent agenda, and the board can vote on these items as a whole, or should there be a need to discuss any of the items individually, the board will vote on the remaining items and then discuss the item in question prior to the vote on that item. Item number 1, consider the approval of the final plat for Grayson Park Phase 2B and 2C. Consider approval of the revised final plat for Grayson Park Phase 2A to show address assigned to Spalding County Tax Assessor. Do I have a motion to approve both of those?
These are the 2 in the consent agenda, right?
Yes, 2 in the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Better than what it used to be.
Yes. Yes, I agree. All right, Ms. Nguyen?
Nothing.
All right. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 4-0, motion carries. Item number 3, new business. Consider the approval of a minor plat, SD 23-01, Hardy Moore Farms. This plat consists of 8 lots with current zoning of AR1, agriculture, and residential. Back to you, Director.
Yes, this is, the applicant is Grayson Park, revised.
We're on Harding.
Harding. I'm so sorry. Give me just a moment.
Yeah, take your time.
Apologize for that. Minor plat, development for Hardy Moore Farms. Applicant is TNT Dynamos LLC. Approval, the request is for approval of this minor plat for Hardy Moore Farms. The applicant is seeking approval on their minor plat subdivision consisting of 8 lots. This subdivision would be considered a minor plat as the development will not include new streets or roads. Again, this is the minor plat that also consists of the cemetery. Final staff recommendation Staff recommends conditional approval with the following conditions. Number one, following the ordinance, any amendments of this plat will require approval from Board of Commissioners. Number two, architectural design shall be governed by Section 501. Number three, prior to approval of the subdivision plat, a public hearing shall be conducted before the Board of Commissioners to review the cemetery report on the subject property, which we have done tonight.
Okay, all right. Mr. Ryan, you have comments about this?
Just like it was stated, the original plats that was set up for this property was atrocious. There was some underhanded stuff, some sneaky stuff I believe was going on. Somebody was trying to rush it before anybody caught up with it. But if this developer, landowner now, was to walk away from this tomorrow, another developer could come in and put interior roads and go with a minor subdivision and put up the 38 houses that they originally talked to. This is one of the best plans I've seen with this property, and I definitely don't want to see it go. Because I live on Martin Road, right off of Moore Road, so I'm right behind the Ponders. I just bought 72 acres right behind them. And when I seen that original plat, I was going to do everything in my power to stop it. But we're held to constraints. These people, if they go by the ordinances and do everything that they are required to do, there's nothing we can do. I mean, we get sued monthly from developers and stuff trying to stop us from, we say no.
From stopping them, yeah.
They can fight us on it. So, by far, this is a good thing for the area. And I just definitely don't want to mess it up with a developer. They are really, truly trying to do the right thing with the cemetery. They put, they've already started, they got the pipes in the ground, got the drives going in, they're agreeing to do the 4-foot fence. And they have to allow you access. I mean, they're not doing you no favors with that. But I really, truly think they're trying to do the best thing, and there's really nothing I can honestly ask them to do further with it, so.
This minor plat is consistent to the AR1 requirements. We'll be looking at 8 rural estate lots that fits the character of that surrounding area according to AR1 standards.
Ron, did you say the piping's already gone in place?
Just the road, at the road. They've got the driveway started on several of the lots.
Oh, the culverts.
Culverts, yes.
Yeah, okay. Ms. Quinn?
So what about our sidewalk ordinance? Is that appropriate here?
Sidewalk ordinance.
Why not?
Newton?
The way that it's currently set up, it doesn't take into effect the estate lots with the houses being so far back off of the road. And it is in the area that's designated inside of our comp plan as green. So it does not fall into the same category as a major subdivision with sidewalks on the major or minor roads.
Okay, so what is this lot size in a minor subdivision? What's that number? What's that magic number?
The minimum in AR1 is going to be 3 acres, but these lots are all exceed 5.
Right, but we talk about what a major subdivision is and what a minor subdivision is, and how many lots of record are we talking about in a minor subdivision?
The minor subdivision, when it's not tied to necessarily the number of lots, but as to whether or not they're cutting a new street or access for the lots into the subdivision.
To allow
That's
people to be able to build off of it.
That is correct.
Okay,
It is a subdivision, but because there's no road, no new street development, it is a.
no internal road.
That's correct.
Okay,
And these lots will not, at no time in the future, be subdivided whatsoever. Once they lay these out, I mean, what's the protocol on that?
that's
I
not
mean, they're
necessarily true.
big enough that somebody one day could have an entire family wanna, break it up.
Back to where we were.
And you
We're back
can't
to
stop
this.
that, yeah.
We could condition it right now.
Can we condition it right
You
now?
can impose that as a condition. We do not have anything short of that, though.
How can you
we
tell
don't have
somebody
anything
what
in
to
the
do with their
ordinance that
stuff?
says somebody who's got a 10-acre lot could not subdivide that again if the requisite road frontage setbacks and other things,
Are met.
Ryan, were met.
Yeah. And see, a lot of people don't realize, like, we have a overlay of the whole county. The northeast side, Teeman Road, Mr. Clay Davis area, that's gonna be a residential area. I mean, you can already tell it's packed out, got Sun City. I'm fighting it. I don't want nothing built like that down here on our side. Alan Mobley set a precedence over here to me, 3 acres or more. on a lot.
Yeah,
I like
over on
mini
off
farms.
Ellis.
I mean, because if you was to throw something like what's going on up there, it's needed, but not down on our side right now. I mean, it's just, we're way behind on that.
All right. Where are we on this? What does everybody want to do?
Which plot has the, or proposed plot has the?
Number 3, I think,
It's the,
has a
Number 3.
cemetery on it.
yes, the lot number 7.
It's lot number
It's
7.
18,
Lot number 7?
yep, I can't. pull it
1,
up.
2, 3.
It's on the screen as we speak.
It's on
Okay.
the screen up there.
And just for a little history, right there where the cemetery is, I killed my first deer right there. I used to hunt
Okay.
at Bob Hardy's place, so right there, just probably 50 yards from the cemetery. So I was
Chairman.
born and raised, I grew up in the area, so I've got it at heart to protect it, just like y'all do.
Mr. Chairman, we do have several people who have signed up to speak.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Morozak, I believe you're up first for this one as well.
I'll just say briefly, thank you for your time. We realize that a number of approvals have to occur later on. Engineering, building specifications, administrative work, and we'll defer to the commission on this.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Barnes, you're also listed as a speaker for this one.
Yes, sir, I signed over the wrong sheet.
All right, thank you.
We understand that?
Mr. Hale, I believe you signed up this as well?
Yes, sir, not much to say. Do I need to state my name and all again?
I think we're fine. You've stated it earlier.
No, not much to say. Just again, thank you all, and this survey and what we're gonna see on the other one that we have, this is kind of our niche. Again, we're not developers and we don't flip tracts of land. What we try to do is, create some space for people who don't wanna live in a subdivision, wanna have a place of their own. And so we buy tracts this size and around this size and try to break it into pieces that are affordable for people and to give them a piece of land that's not just a subdivision lot. And we're thankful to be in Spalding County doing it. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nathan Hunt. Mr. Hunt, since you have not spoken earlier, if you would step forward and state your name and your address for the record, please.
My name's Nathan Hunt. My address is 410 Oakview Lane, Canton, Georgia, 30114. I am partnered with Mr. Hale as the sales representative for the land we do this projects on. These plans have been put into much thought with Mr. Charles, with the planning commissioners, or with the planning development people. And so we seem, and we plan in most projects to exceed the requirements, to make for a steady, easy transaction. We're not trying to tear something that was so good up, if that makes sense. And so, based off of our research, we have saved this land from something that would have probably torn apart the community and the locals around there. And so, just understanding that from our business, that is our goal in everything we do, is to honor that, honor the land, and honor the community. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
No one else has signed up, Mr. Chairman?
Okay. Now, Ms. Gwynn, how do you feel about the genealogical portion of this now?
I really feel like there needs to be some more thank you, exploration. I'm getting tongue-tied up here.
Okay.
And
Okay.
also, I want a little bit more definition. I see on the map, there's a 20-foot access easement from on Lot 7 off of Hardy Lane. Is that easement something that has to be voted on? Is that something that we say needs to be in there? I mean, I'm looking at y'all.
Yep, we'll talk, ask the director.
I mean, how do we know that that is going to be, if and when this is approved, how do we know that that 20-foot easement from Hardy Road to the cemetery is?
Well, given that it's not going to be public access, that wouldn't be required for approval. But they'll have to record it as such once this minor plat is approved. They have to record it showing that easement in the recording of the plat.
So, I mean, but it will be public access, won't it? I mean, anybody can drive down to the cemetery from the road.
That's what we said.
So I'm just trying to make sure that whatever decision we make, that access is preserved, if that is what the,
The access easement will be preserved as you approve the plat.
Correct.
Because that plat then gets recorded, and that protects the easement to be able to access. And you're correct, on one hand, this isn't like a public road, but somebody could go down and access the cemetery if they chose to do it.
and what is the square footage of the size of the land? I read in the report where it says that an amount of space around the actual place where they think that the cemetery is has been preserved for that. How do we know what that is in square footage?
You would have to the engineer would have to give you a computation of that. I don't know the square footage. Charles, we don't have anything on the square footage.
So I think that that's important to know exactly how much that space is, because, I mean, are we talking about 2 feet outside where the last grave is? Are we talking about 20 feet? And in terms of the archaeological study, as Ryan was talking about, I think it's pretty normal for people to look for people's genealogy when they get DNA from the ground. But I would hate to think that there are people buried there, and we knew that that was a cemetery, and we did not take every effort to honor the space that we think they were in. In 200 years' time, I don't know very many churches, except for maybe in Europe, that have stood. So, I mean, that church that was there could have been burnt down 3 times. We don't know if they were, I just would feel more comfortable knowing that someone actually did everything they could to find out whether or not there are bodies or there were people buried there.
Can you provide us with how to move forward then as staff?
I think that.
Can we do both? Can we approve the plat and require genealogical?
A more
You
detailed.
haven't yet taken a vote on the cemetery yet.
there's only one
And by,
We only have one action.
Yeah.
no, you had a public hearing on the cemetery.
Yeah.
Right.
And now you've had approval of, or you're considering approval of the plat. With regard to genealogy, let me reference OCGA 3672-6, which requires the applicant to implement a plan to attempt to identify and locate descendants. Now, we have been reported, or it's been reported in their plan, that no grave markers are there and nobody can be identified. There are remnants of grave markers. So if you want more information, I think what what you would do is ask the archaeologist who did the study to come back and tell you what he did in terms of trying to identify people who might be deceased there and contacting their descendants, which the statute goes on to state. Now, if they can be determined, then there is a requirement to attempt to try to identify descendants in order to give them information that the ancestors buried there. And then at that point, y'all make the decision as whether or not the applicant's archaeology report has satisfied this to the degree that you want it satisfied. Does that make sense? Y'all following me on
Yeah.
that?
Mr. Ryan, how you feel about it?
Like Mr. Hale stated while he was up there, he said that they would open to give a further buffer around the cemetery. And I'm for, conditional approval. upon, I just, like I say, you don't wanna jump the gun on the cemetery, but we're really not jumping the gun because this has been going on for over a year now. I don't know. I don't know.
So,
Ms.
I mean,
Quinn?
there's a lot of work. I mean, this is, I'm not saying I'm an archaeologist, but I watch a lot of stuff on TV. I love it. I think when we did the study over at the quarry, TJ came back and told us if there were Native American bodies there or remnants of that, then it would be a whole different thing. And I just don't think that we went far enough to see if that happened. The other thing is that Ms. Elder talked about having been in touch with some families who had gone to the church or who had history. And that's what you do with archaeology and genealogy. You have to go and talk to people. I'm not very comfortable with the report that says it is unlikely that you could find anything with the ground penetrating radar, or it is unlikely that blah, blah, blah. I want to know that you looked down in there and you did not see it. Or I went from the center grave site and I did a perimeter of 300 feet from where the church site was, because maybe if the church site was here, maybe they buried people on this side, and then when it got full, they got to that side. We don't know what could have happened in 150 years. But I'm just not comfortable with just saying, here's a plot of graves that we know, and we're gonna go out 4 feet away from it and put a fence around it. I'd rather do some sort of conditional approval that would come back with a more detailed inquiry and information, other than I just stuck some sticks in the ground. I mean, there's nothing here in the report that says to me, even at the places where we were able to identify this many graves. It's just very vague. And I just think it's disrespectful if we don't do what we need to do to at least identify in that particular plat.
Mr. James?
I agree with Quinn. I think that I like this idea of, I like what they've come up with. It's certainly better than anything else anybody has come up with.
Yes.
I think that approving them for that and letting them move forward with that, and then having further discussion about the one lot with the cemetery on it, letting the community discuss that, and making sure, like, what everybody wants is there, that we're doing all this. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want somebody to think they've done all they can and then they find my grave one day under somebody's house, you know what I'm saying? Like, but at the same time, I don't want to inconvenience, that's the wrong word, over encumber the developer, non-developer. So maybe we approve this plat tonight and say, in a month, we're gonna come back and have a final decision on this last lot.
Lot 7.
Yeah, right? That's the one that's.
Yes. All right.
I mean, is that,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm good with however you can
Can
work
we just
it
set
out
up
for them
a
to-
space around it so that nothing can be done, plus 100 feet or something, so that we
well,
think?
if you
before
approve
next
the
month,
entire-
they're not gonna come back and be like,
They're
these
not gonna
houses
have to
will
do
go,
anything,
like,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying, like.
This is a
there's
pretty.
no
All I
reason
want to
to
do is
set-
make sure that when somebody goes back and checks again, that, yeah, now we've moved in tighter. So can we do both? Can we approve the plat minus 7?
When you approve the plat, that's all you've done. You have approved the plat. For them to get a permit on the lot that remains with the cemetery, you will have to approve, pursuant to the requirements of the abandoned cemetery statute, that you are satisfied that their study complies with those requirements. So you don't have to segment a lot out, because Charles cannot issue a permit on the lot the cemetery's on until y'all have made a determination regarding the cemetery.
So approving the plat and instructing staff to make sure that before any development or any decision, final approval can be made on lot 7 will have to be pursuant to a further investigation of the,
You have to approve the permit related to the cemetery. That's correct.
But not now.
You don't have to do it now.
Well, there's not one coming before us now. We have nothing to approve currently because they're not even asking for that. They're asking for the plat, not to develop that lot. So
All
they
you're
would have
doing-
to in
all
the
you're
future
doing
come
is-
back and ask to develop that
All
lot.
you're doing is putting survey lines on the ground. with
because the
approval of
next
the public.
purchaser will have to deal with this when they get ready to develop that land,
That's
right?
correct.
They're gonna have to go through the whole entire permitting
Right.
process, so
So we're just
that
saying
lot
you
would
can
definitely
split
be
it up
flagged.
this
to-
way now,
Right.
that's the plat, but when it gets ready to be permitted, they will have to be able to produce the information that we need.
Very
related to the
correct. I couldn't have said it better.
Can we add a condition that says these lots can't be further subdivided than what we're currently seeing?
That would be a challenge because if it's meeting the zoning requirements, we can't just arbitrarily just stop them from requesting to subdivide. These lots, even after the 8 lots are divided, after this is divided into 8 lots, you're still looking at large lots.
Right.
That could possibly be re-subdivided.
We don't want that to happen.
But
So,
we don't want that to happen.
no, but I mean, what if
No.
your kids want to be on the 16-acre property that you have, and you should have a right to be able to subdivide so that they can have.
Any change in that condition can come back
It
before
has
us
to,
for a
yeah,
vote.
it would have
It
to.
would still have to go through the process.
Right,
Didn't mean to
right.
interrupt you, Commissioner.
So we could undo that later if there's this kind of circumstance, whereas if we approve the minor subdivision, like, I don't want somebody to come back later and be like, hey, we bought 3 of these and we're turning these into 10 lots. You see what I'm saying? Like, so.
We don't want to go back to where we were.
Yeah, the current owner is saying, all we want is 8 lots. Okay,
Yes.
let's lock you into these 8 lots.
Yes.
And then someone in the future doesn't, as a matter of right, get to subdivide these, but can come back to us and say, hey, this is my kid, my grandkids want to, whatever, you know, you see what I'm saying? So we can-
Our code protects us to enforce the requirements that would be necessary if they were to come back
Right.
and
And
do something
let's
differently.
add that as a condition, and then we'll let the developer, non-developer know that before they can do something with 7, and that he should let anyone who he sells this to or whatever know before they can do something with 7, they're gonna have to, just like the rest, come back and ask for those permits. But there's a lot of extra questions with 7 that maybe won't be asked everywhere else. And you should be cognizant of that before coming back about 7.
Yes. Could I ask a couple questions?
Yes, go ahead.
We've gone through the statutory process for the permit on 7. And so if we're not gonna be granted that tonight, I would like to know exactly what we need to do in order to get that granted, because your counsel in the suggestion has said we met the requirements, it should be approved. And so if they're already saying that, what more are you asking us to do? And we'll do it. I don't want to. I'd rather get it approved.
You're talking
But
about the cemetery now
Yes, sir.
again. Okay. Look, can I ask, do you mind, Mr. Chairman?
Go.
Josh, is the developer comfortable with having only 8 lots? Y'all platted it out.
Yes,
Are you
absolutely.
comfortable with a condition that says y'all can live with just 8 lots?
Yes.
Okay.
We're looking
the
for the
truth
win-win.
is-
Let's make sure everybody understands. We're looking for the win-win.
All you're doing tonight is approving the minor plat. Anything further will have to go through the
The whole
process.
process
Okay.
and application,
We're
so it's just this is what this land is gonna look like. We're proving that this picture is gonna look
All right,
like.
Mr. Ryan, you good with this?
Yep, I'll make, yep, I'll make
that
a motion
condition?
to approve with the conditions, that there's only 8 lots
Yeah.
with this
Flag.
developer and landowner. And anything in the future had to come before us. Basically puts a flag on it so we'll see it,
In addition to the
Any
one,
future division.
any future
Any future,
divisions.
And no permit would issue on lot 7 until you have made a decision on the cemetery.
I think that's what he
Yeah,
said.
Okay.
You got it?
I certainly heard Ryan say that.
I second it.
Okay. Kathy, did you get? I got it. Okay, wanted to make sure. All right. Any more discussion? We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Let's, y'all should still have that meeting
Yes.
about 7. Those, I'd love to be able to say in the future when we come back for 7, like that condition is, here's the checklist, but like, that, I mean, that's pretty squishy. I don't know what that checklist exactly would be, let's be honest. So, like, be cognizant and conscious of what those demands would be. And you've done a great job so far in doing that, but I just want to, I wish I could answer that question that you had, what exactly you want us to do. Mostly what you've already done, but
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, would the board be inclined to allow Mr. Morozek to use the commission meeting room for this discussion?
absolutely. Totally fine.
After we're done, you're talking about?
No, not tonight, but
Oh,
in the
yes.
future.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit more. Okay, all right. I've had a motion and a second and all the discussion. Anything else? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 4-0, motion carries. Everybody understands what's going on now, I hope. We're looking for it.
I'm not quite there. Would you just clarify? So is the
Your plat's
cemetery,
approved.
the plat's approved, but the permit on lot 7 is being,
Held until the
Postponed.
cemetery is decided, and the cemetery, they have not voted following the public hearing on the cemetery.
okay.
Okay. Not yet,
So it's not a no, it's just, we just didn't.
but the night's young.
Well, tamic you for that. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 2, consider approval of a minor plat, SD 23-02, Hamel Road. This plat consists of 16 lots with current zoning of R2, single-family residential district. Do we have anybody to speak on this?
We do, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Joshua Hale? Mr. Hale, you are up as the first speaker for the next case, please, sir.
Who is Mr. Hale?
All right, Mr. Hale, if you would state your name and your address for the record for this case, please.
Joshua Hale, 564 Mulberry Street, Macon, Georgia, 31201.
Thank you.
This Hamel Road project, similar to the other one, similar sized lots, different shapes, and one thing I'd like to say before we get started, these pictures of this tract are a little bit misleading because of relativity. This is a large piece of land, and so it makes it look like these lots are not very wide and that there are a lot of them, and there are quite a few, but they're all well beyond the minimum acreage requirements. And the width of the lots, to put it in perspective for you, in the future development plan for Spalding County, this area, and my understanding is the minimum acreage requirement is 1 acre. But in your comprehensive plan, this one, in 2017, this area was changed and became the Tualaga residential character area, which also stated 1 acre lots. And so with the width of our lots, minimum width 300 feet, not by your standards, but that's just roughly how wide our lots are. If they were 1 acre, they'd be 300 feet wide and 140 feet deep. So we're talking about a football field wide, even though they look kind of narrow, they're really not narrow. It's just because the tract is so large. So again, if they were 1 acre, they'd be 300 feet wide and only 140 feet deep. So they would have more road frontage than they would depth. If they were 2 acres, then it would be about 300 by 300, roughly. That's 90,000 square feet. An acre is 43,560, so it'd be a little over 2 acres if they were square 2 acre lots with this amount of road frontage. And so they're good sized tracts. I think they comply with everything that I've read. And again, it's the same type of thing that we do where we're creating affordable tracks, mid-sized tracks. We don't do small things, we don't do real large things, but one last thing that I mentioned, and I didn't on the last one, on a lot of these, people will buy more than one lot. It's common, we may have gotten approval on 8 lots on Hardy and Moore, but we may only end up with 4 or 5 owners. It doesn't necessarily mean there's gonna be 8 new homes built out there. And I really anticipate that on this one. This is, if you've not seen this tract of land, it is gorgeous. There are 2 ponds completely lying within the property, 2 more ponds that touch the property, and one of them is one of the prettiest ponds. It's a 12-acre pond, and you can see fish swimming in the bottom of it. I've never seen anything that clear except in Montana. So, but again, thank you all for your consideration. If you have any questions or anything I can do to be helpful, I'll just stand here. I don't think we've got any opposition on this one.
Okay, anybody else?
The only other person who has signed up is Mr. Nathan Hunt. Okay, thank you.
Okay, okay. Mr. Reese?
Yes, the applicant again is TNT Dynamos LLC. The applicant is seeking approval on their minor plat subdivision consisting of 16 lots. The subdivision would be considered a minor plat as the development will not include new streets or roads. The current zoning for this site is R2.
Okay. Mr. Ryan, comment?
Can you bring up the map of where the lots are gonna be, like the post-divided lots? And so those, the thin ones at the top and the thin ones in the center, you say that those are still 300-foot road frontage? Like at least?
You're talking about on the north end toward East McIntosh Road?
Yeah, sort of above that lake and then below. Like all of them have at least 300-foot road frontage, like that 4 kind of dog legs in there.
Yes. Nathan, can you pull the measurements on those? I can't see exactly what they are. Yes, I can.
I mean, we wouldn't have approved them if they weren't, right? Like it's
Correct.
300-foot minimum.
There's a, on the R, sorry, with the R2 zoning,
It has a 300-foot minimum.
it is a 200-foot minimum.
Oh.
And,
Here it
we have selected those 2 lots to encumber around 250 feet, maybe a little less. The exact measurement is right here on this paper.
I've got them here now. So starting from the north, lot 1 is 478.07. Lot 2 is 321.3. Lot 3 is 254.16. Lot 4 is 221.45. Lot 5 is 712.83. Lot 6 is 484.09. Lot 7 is on a curve, so it's tough to say, but it's 94.13 plus 207, so 301 feet and some change.
Which number was that?
Lot 7. Lot 8 is also on a slight curve, but comes in around 294 plus 28, so that one is 322. I don't have a calculator, but I'm decent. Lot 9, 335. Lot 10, 227.46. Same exact figure on lot 11, 227.46. Lot 12, 282.18. Lot 13, 282.18 as well. Lot 14, 337.1, 15, 361.28, and 16, 383.48. And it also has frontage on Jackson Road, separate from the Hamel Road frontage.
This fits our general design of how large we want them, where we're going to. We agree?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the road frontage. What I do have a problem with, and I have a problem with every single subdivision that we do like this, is curb cuts. 16 curb cuts between McIntosh and Jackson Road is a lot. We don't have anything in our ordinance that says that maybe some of these driveways can be together, but
That would be worse.
that's gonna be that's gonna be a lot. I mean, you know, it's not a state road. Do we ask for egress, ingress? No, yes. I mean, it's a subdivision, but it's all road frontage. And that's 16 families with that many more vehicles. I mean, I'm just kinda, I don't know what we can do about it, but this is like,
Curb cuts are bad.
yeah, curb cuts are really bad.
I don't know, I kind of disagree. Like, if the curb cuts were on Jackson Road or McIntosh, like, then, yeah, those are sort of thoroughfares, you know what I mean? Like, but like Hamel is, I mean, it really is kind of for, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Cut through.
Can we pull the plat up with the north side of the property? And you'll see the curb cuts that were originally fixing to start up there with the prior developer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, in less than a quarter of a mile.
yeah, and that was on McIntosh.
That's on McIntosh.
That's the kind of stuff that I go, wait a
Ugly,
minute, that's not
That is
okay.
ugly, it's
Right.
awful.
We were
right
not
there.
approved, I don't think we were.
That wasn't us.
I mean, this has been there 100 years. But yeah, that's a problem for me, just because there's only 3 houses on that street now. So, but it's a cross cut between McIntosh and Jackson Road, but, you know, I'm just
Do
thinking,
y'all remember the original plat of this? There was like, was it 249 homes or 149? It was 249? That's how many houses was fixing to go in there. And just one road,
y'all coming in.
that would have been 249 more families just on that stretch trying to get it. Just imagine getting,
yeah,
that's the most dangerous spot in the county, right
compared
there
to,
at Jackson
yeah.
Road.
Because when you come out of Jackson Road, there's a hill coming up one way and a curve coming around the other way.
7 or 8 different fatalities right there when I was a deputy. Just worst place in the county.
I mean, 200 feet, 300 feet is a football field. I mean, that's a good amount of distance. But still, you know,
Curb
you're
cuts are
pulling
not-
out,
Yeah.
So,
Creates a lot of,
yeah,
but I don't have a solution.
I don't either. I don't either.
I mean.
Because it's not McIntosh and it's not Jackson.
Right.
I don't know what the speed limit will be, but
Director, do you understand what our issue is with this curb cut business?
Of course. Of course.
Okay.
Henry County's got no
You
idea.
have any ideas, any solutions, anything we could do, should do?
You will have to give us some time to, I wouldn't be able to come up with anything tonight.
Ban all curb cuts now.
if you go out Highway 6, I think it's Highway 16 or 92, before maybe Sonoy or between Sonoy and the Sharpsburg, there are several subdivisions that are right there on the highway. And in some places, there's 2 wide driveways, one going to that way, one going to that way.
Yeah, those
But
always cause a big problem.
but there's a big space. I mean, if you,
My driveways are a train wreck. Because somebody sells and goes, wait a minute, but you're supposed to owe for half when we have to repave. And
Is this a?
oh yeah, I
they
didn't know,
created-
yeah, I don't know
Is this
about
a
that.
time-sensitive action? Does this need to be, I mean, could we give you
Accord-
time to figure out something to do about the curb cut concept?
I mean, I don't
I
know
mean, I
what
don't
you
think
do
we
about
should
curb
stop
cuts here.
them, with
don't
this
either.
project, but I think that.
This is something that would require further study, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't hold this
Don't
this
hold them
request
up because of this.
hostage
Okay,
for that.
I'm
for that.
okay
I
with
just have to always verbalize that I hate a lot of curb cuts.
Now, if you're looking at it,
You good.
if you're looking at it, the glass halfway full,
Right.
these are big lots.
These are big,
Yes.
awesome lots.
That's our,
The state lots are very large, and you
this
limit
is
the
our
number
first
of people.
objective, get it to the size we want it to be. Curb cuts are a minor thing.
And it's all already zoned R2, we're just replatting the motion to approve.
It's already zoned
With
R2.
all of the conditions as
All right,
is
I have a
recommended.
motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I just have to add to the history to this property here. I
you hunt here too?
hunted and fished it. That place used to have so many rabbits on it, it was like going to Cordele back in the 80s. I mean, it was awesome. Beautiful piece of property. Come on, man. Yeah.
All right.
It is.
I
don't
have,
wanna sell it.
Ms. Gwynn, that's just too much information. Okay.
Yes, Lord, he over here killing stuff left and right.
You didn't hunt this land, Glenn? You were
Biscuits and gravy. You'd be-
All right, thank you. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 4-0. Thank you for what you're doing for our county, moving in the
Appreciate
direction
ya.
we wish you to come. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Nice to meet y'all.
All right, do I have any comments from commissioners?
No, I think we just got some good business done, and we gave Charles some extra homework to go and do. And thank you guys for explaining it so well.
Yes.
No problem at all.
Really excited about day one coming up. I got my pencils. Me and Ryan are gonna
I have a
hand out
motion
our
to
pencils
adjourn.
faster.
Motion to adjourn.
And a second? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 4-0. We're adjourned. Thank you all.
Maybe it's my motion? Okay. It's all over.
He asked second. Yeah, go. We understand. Go.
Mike's